I know last episode I didn't have much of an intro because nothing really happened, but this week was actually interesting, so I have an intro for this episode. I just came back from shooting at a photography studio. I'm shooting my campaign for my upcoming merch line, and I started going through the photos from the SD card to set up the SD card for this podcast. And I almost fell down the rabbit hole of starting to go through the images then and there, and then I had to stop myself because I realized I need to film this episode. But yeah, there's exciting things happening. I'm really excited. It was my first time shooting in a professional studio, and it's my first time actually like organizing a campaign like this. And there's looking back at the photos now, there's definitely things that I notice now that I will do the next time I do something like this, but um I'm happy that I finally got to do it and I got my foot in the water and is a place where I can continue to grow from. So, yeah, let's get into this week's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of As a Creative, the podcast focusing on empowering creatives and giving them the tools and knowledge to thrive in the industry. My name is Robin, and in the last couple episodes, it's been me giving you advice on various aspects of working as a creative in the industry, how to go about professionally developing yourself, different ways to navigate the industry. And I want this episode's going to be a little bit of a different one. It's going to be me speaking on my experience, and I want you guys to make the insights. So let's get into it. So, as I mentioned in my first episode of this podcast, I'm currently a college athlete, and sports and just being an athlete has been a major aspect of my life since now, and I would contribute a lot of my experience as an athlete and just sports in general to who I am now. It's a major contributor to how I very much navigate the industry, how I take control in my life, and how I view the world for sure when it comes to work ethic, morals, and values. And this episode, I'm going to be sharing on my experience as an athlete and what I've learned from being an athlete and how my lessons have correlated to my journey as a professional creative. So, disclaimer, this is not supposed to be me flexing or showing off that I've had the extreme privilege of having sports in my life for this long, and on top of that, having the amazing opportunity of being a college athlete. This is me sharing my experience and for you guys to make insights. I want my reflection to show that you can pull from various aspects of your life while trying to pursue your creative passions and strive towards career advancement. So let's get into it. So I had gone into the college recruitment process pretty late compared to other girls. My family had no clue how to go about it, and a lot of families of players that I played with in middle school and high school, they kind of gatekeeped all that information from my family just because there's so much money involved when it comes to collegiate athletics. And so eventually I had one player in high school finally give me the name of a club team and hooked me up with a tryout, and that ended up being my first club team. And from there on out, I had to figure out the whole recruitment process practically by myself, and I had to learn everything on my own, who to reach out to. There were multiple instances where club teams would break up, and I would have to go and search up a new club team that I would get a tryout for and hopefully get on the team. But my family did not have a large income at the time, and my parents had just separated in the middle of high school. And in general, so that put a strain on what schools I was able to apply to and look to get recruited to. And in general, in Arizona, which is my home state, there are not a lot of opportunities to get recruited to play collegiately. It's either you go NCAA D1, or there's a couple NAIA schools, and or you just go JUCO. So it's either D1, NAIA, or JUCO. There are no D2s, there are no D3s. Most of the time, if you weren't recruited in the state of Arizona, a lot of athletes will get recruited out of state. And at the time, it just didn't seem like that was going to be an option for me just because of my family situation. So on top of me finding club teams to play for, I also had to find my own hitting coaches, because it's typically normal to not only have a club team that you play on outside your high school team, but to also have a hitting coach that you go to twice a week. I had to find all those things on my own, and my club teams would fold so frequently. I would be on a club team for probably like 4 months at a time before they would fold for I don't even know what reason. Not enough girls, not enough money, don't know. But each time a team would fold, I would have to go look up a new team to join. And on top of that, I had to find my own hitting coach. And so on top of me practicing for the school, dealing with school and classwork, I had to go to extra practices and hitting lessons. I paid for my hitting lessons by myself from a part-time job, and it was all on me. I held myself accountable. I showed up when I needed to. I put in the work, most definitely. And there are definitely times where I doubted myself and doubted my skills and my abilities as a softball player. And regardless of those doubts and how I viewed myself as a player, I still wanted it so bad to be recruited as a college athlete and just have that title of I am playing collegiately. That was such a huge honor to me. And on top of that, softball did a lot for me growing up, and to have the ability to play another 4 years at a competitive level was the absolute dream of my life back in high school. So in addition to finding my own club teams and getting myself a hitting coach and showing up for that, I also reached out to college coaches by myself. I reached out to them cold emails, and that's how I got comfortable with sending cold emails to people. I would look up the college coaches' information online, and I would not be afraid to just reach out of the blue and be like, hey, I want the opportunity to try out A, B, and C. I would love to play for y'all. And I would just reach out of the blue because I had nothing to lose and I wanted to get recruited really, really bad. And I just felt like there was really nothing for me to lose. The worst thing that could have happened was to say no. I also sacrificed a lot of what made high school fun. I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't hang out with a lot of friends outside of school. I didn't underage drink or do all the typical things like go to dances and all that, just because I wanted to make sure my body and my head was in the right space, so when I had the opportunity to compete in tournaments, I was in the best shape I could be. And I sacrificed a lot of it because that's how bad I wanted it. And again, I had a lot of doubts in my skills and my abilities to be a collegiate player. I doubted my ability to get recruited in general, but I just continued to work hard and devotedly because I wanted it really, really bad. And eventually, I got it. I ended up getting recruited to an NAIA school in Arizona, and my college signing it's definitely to this day one of the best days of my life, because it was one of those moments that I achieved something that I wanted so bad. And when I got recruited, that whole experience taught me resilience. It taught me again that no matter how bad you want something, and if you put in the work to do it, you will get it. And that resilience is how I go about the way that I live my life, how I go about pursuing my creative projects, and how I go about trying to advance in the industry. My resilience and my willingness to want to go far in life came from being a college athlete, and specifically my collegiate recruitment journey. My college recruitment journey taught me how to continue to work hard, to keep pushing forward as hard as you want to, especially in the face of failure and rejection. And honestly, that carries on into my life now, just because in general life is filled with failure and rejection. So having my college recruitment journey like be that main example to me in my life definitely set me up to where I am now, 100%. So another lesson that I learned from specifically being a softball player, I learned how to deal with failure and how to move past it. Especially in softball when there's so many possible ways to fail as a player. The ball can get hit to you and you miss it. You could miss your target throwing to somebody or something, and obviously striking out, which is obviously striking out is an inevitable thing, but it still sucks. So I learned at an early age during softball, when I was a younger softball player, middle schoolish era, that the ability to move past mistakes or to get over errors was what determined who was a good player and who got more field time. But how were they able to get past mistakes? So through softball, I learned to have a short-term memory span when it came to errors and making mistakes. I learned how to completely forget about the error that even happened during the game and to focus on the next play. And I realized that if I continued to dwell on the error or the mistake that I made, it would just get me a little bit like mentally locked up, and it would trigger more mistakes to happen down the road. So this ability to quickly move past mistakes became more applicable to other aspects of my life than I realized. I realized even in my classes in school and even in my part-time jobs that bad days are going to happen and mistakes inevitably are going to be made. And if you're not able to mentally reset, those bad periods are going to be prolonged a lot longer than you want them to be. You have to find a way to quickly move past mistakes, and personally the way I go about it is through objectifying it. If I have a bad day or just a series of bad events happen on a singular day, I just say, it's happening, whatever, this sucks. Regardless if I feel good or bad about it, it happened. So there's no point of tying my emotions into it. Objectively, it happened, and regardless how I feel about it, we're just gonna have to move on. And just having that ability to objectify bad things that happen and be able to take the emotions out of it, it helps you move past things quicker. It helps me personally move past stuff quicker. And you'll realize over time that the more you dwell on it, like the more you dwell on your mistakes, you're kind of wasting your time. The more you dwell on it, the more you think about it, the bad mistakes or even just the past, like it's kind of a waste of time, and it's in your best interest just to not forget about it, but just objectify it, it happened, and go on to the next thing. So another lesson that I learned from softball was the ability to communicate and to use my voice. And specifically for me, I was a catcher outfielder. Specifically as a catcher, I was responsible for communicating pitch calls and field plays, and on top of that, executing my end of the play. So I would have to communicate the pitch calls from the coach to the pitcher, which I had to do the play calls, the sign thing, that thing. And then I would have to use my voice to yell to all the other 8 players on the field what play we were doing when we had runners on base. And I would definitely say I gained my ability to yell and to scream from those experiences. And I had to get comfortable really quickly when I became a catcher. I had to learn how to be authoritative immediately. I would definitely say I gained leadership skills from being a catcher, my ability to be a leader, just because I was the person mainly in charge of the field, and that experience translated into other aspects of my life, such as 4-H, where I would hold leadership positions. I was a president for my club for 3 years when I was organizing and running events for my club, and even translated into school and in my classes. I learned to use my voice more and to not be afraid to participate in class. And I would say even translated to now in general, because I pretty much take authority in my life and initiative. And if I want to go off after an opportunity, or if I really want to chase something, I'm not afraid to put myself out there. I'm not afraid to reach out or do what I need to do to find out more information till I get to a dead end. And all that stemmed from being a catcher. So another valuable lesson that I learned from sports actually came from a negative experience of being an athlete. And this is something that I've had to unlearn these last couple of years. So when I decided I was going to try to get recruited collegiately for softball, I pretty much determined at that point that softball was my entire life. My friends and my family knew that softball was something I deeply cared about, that I was deeply attached to. There's definitely times I turned down hanging out with friends or would have in the back of my mind, oh, I gotta make sure I'm good for this hitting lesson tomorrow. But I would definitely prioritize. My friends definitely knew that I prioritize my performance during games, during practices, during lessons. Especially during lessons and practices, I put a lot of emphasis on myself. A lot of unnecessary expectations on myself for just even a club practice. So I dedicated a huge chunk of my life to softball to the point where I basically placed my self-worth on softball. And at that point, if I didn't have softball, I didn't really know what I was without it. Softball was made me who I am. And I felt like I was nothing without it. And over time, this caused a lot of stress, unnecessary stress. It caused me to place my self-worth on my performance. I would get stressed out about just softball, my playing performance. And if I did bad, it would linger on into my mental space. And if my mental space wasn't good and I was still stuck in those mistakes or the bad moments, it would reflect back on my playing performance. And it just became this endless cycle of, I made a bad mistake, I don't feel good about it, I dwell on it, make more mistakes, and again, it just became that endless loop. I will not lie, my athletic performance definitely declined after I got recruited collegiately. I will not say I was the best player, but I do believe a major aspect of why I wasn't that good at that time was because I was such in a mental lock and I had an unhealthy connection to softball, or relationship to softball. And it definitely caused me to make a lot of mistakes, a lot of very dumb mistakes. And overall, it just took a really bad toll on my mental health. On top of my own relationship with the sport, collegiate coaching is definitely another level. You have to deal with being more competitive with the other girls, and then on top of that, you have to deal with coaches, especially in a team sport where they make all the girls pretty much fight against each other, in my opinion. My athletic performance would be bad, and then my mental health would get worse, and then it would continue to go back and forth like that. And eventually, my high standards of myself and not the ability of not meeting them when it came to softball, and continually doubting my skills and my abilities as a player and my ability to reach expectations, it translated into other aspects of my life where I would have high standards to do X, Y, and Z in classes, at a job, and if I didn't meet those expectations, I would definitely go down a mental spiral. And eventually it took me getting to a very low and extreme mental health episode to where I had to really reevaluate my relationship with softball. It was in my very extreme low point of my life that made me reflect and come to the realization that I'm saying now, is that I made softball my entire life, and I didn't know who I was without the sport. And knowing that I was this hard on myself for something that I felt like was the sole thing that defined me, that realization and how I was being hard on myself in other aspects of life, it made me make a tough decision, which was to walk away from softball. And it was a very hard and very, very hard decision at the time. And I can even just remember the emotions I was feeling then, now. But now the ability of being able to reflect on that stage of life and to know where I'm at now, it was a good decision. It was that extreme low point in my life, and the decision to walk away from something that I held so deeply to me, that was a huge chunk of me, it was that lesson that made me realize that I cannot place my whole self-worth on one or two major aspects of my life. It's not healthy. I learned through walking away from softball to really evaluate the connections and relationships to the things that I do, and to make sure that I'm in it for the right reasons. I was able to recognize what is a healthy relationship to what you do and an unhealthy relationship to what you do. I learned the valuable lesson that your value and your worth is not based off of one or two major aspects of what you do. Your main career, your main passion, you may love it and you see a lot of value in it, but it does not determine your worth and value as a person. And this is something that I want to remind other creatives of, again, is that our creative passions are an extension of ourselves. Your self-worth is not determined by one or two main aspects of what you do. It is not determined by your creative endeavors, your work, your creative passions, your career. Your worth is solely determined by you and what you value. It is not determined off of one or two main aspects of your life. And you have to make sure that you have a healthy connection to what you're doing, a healthy connection to your work, and that you're in it for the right reason. If you place your sole value or sole existence on major aspects of your life, such as your career or your creative endeavors, your identity as a creative, you're eventually going to get disappointed a lot more when it comes to things not working out. If you end up failing, you're going to take it more personally. Having your life solely determined by your identity as a creative is just going to cause a lot of unnecessary stress, and it's going to cause you to have an unhealthy relationship to your work. So just a reminder to the creatives out there, your value is determined by you. It is not determined by your creative passions, your career goals, your career in general. These are all things that are just an extension of us. And I think another aspect of being a successful creative is to make sure that you are in it for the right reasons, and to make sure that your artistic expression, your creativity, the way you put work out into the world is genuine. And I think a way to ensure that is to make sure you remind yourself that your artistic abilities, your creative endeavors are just an extension of you. And once you consider your creative journey like that, it's definitely a more freeing mentality to have, and it definitely relieves some of this unnecessary stress from the whole process of just being a creative in general. And the last lesson that I learned from being an athlete is how beneficial it is to have a well-balanced life. And what I mean, like, to have a well-balanced life, I mean the balance between physical activity and mental concentration. I'm fortunate that a lot of my life that was built into my schedule as an athlete, and I realized that it's beneficial to have multiple components to your life and to not have all your effort and time placed onto one major aspect of your life. You get the ability to experience different things. You get to realize that there's more to life than your main passion that you have. You get the ability to learn things, to absorb, and to gain inspiration. And this is another main point that I want you guys to gain from me talking about my experience as an athlete. I'm not saying become a full-blown athlete like I've had the opportunity to become. I am advocating for us creatives to find a way to move our bodies and to have a more rounded lifestyle. And not only is it healthy for us to do that, it is overall beneficial for your work and your creative endeavors. It is a way for us to add more components to our life and more opportunities for us to learn, to gain more knowledge and gain more inspiration that we can pour back into our creative endeavors. And with that, I think I'm going to leave the episode off there. I hope you liked this episode. If you liked it, go like the YouTube video and go on Spotify and rate me. If you like to stay updated on the podcast, on the socials, I'm on Instagram. It is on Instagram at as.acreative. And then I'm on social media as well. If you're interested in personally what I do, I go by Roobios at ROOBIOS. And yeah, I will see you next week. Bye.